Step first. Choose of the grapes. How to make wine at home. The state of health and ripeness of the grapes is the factor that most influence the quality of the homemade and non-homemade wine. First, all of you need to choose white or red grapes, and depending on the homemade wine you want to get, once the grapes have been choose, the bunches must be carefully selected, avoiding the damaged and green grapes and eliminating leaves and stalks. Step second, pressing. The second step in making wine at home consists in pressing. This operation, which is carried out with a crush, can also be carried out uncomfortably by hand if your quantity of the grapes is not excessive. The resulting liquid is the primary basis of the fermentation process of our homemade wine. Step 3, transport in the fermenter. The third step in making wine at home consists in transporting the must inside a food container fermenter. This operation must be quick and delicate. Red wines are obtained by the maceration of the solid part, skins, seeds, and any stalks. In the white wines, the skins are isolated and removed by the tracking. The skins are then pressed and the liquid is added back to the must. Step 4, choose of yeast and fermentation activates. The choice of yeast is a fundamental phase for making wine at home. Depending on the yeast, and not only the fermentation speed will vary and will also affect the dependent of the orders developed during this process. The choice of the yeast is therefore a step of the fundamental importance to make a quality homemade wine. Step 5, fermentation. Let's see a fundamental step to make wine at home. Alcoholic fermentation includes an initial phase of 1 to 2 days, a tumultuous phase of 7 to 10 days, and a slow phase that continues until the sugar residue are completely transformed and the acidity of the wine decreases bound. During this process, the sugar is the homemade wine naturally contain in grapes are the transformed into the alcohol and carbon dioxide under the action of wine yeast. The development of this gas is the case of the homemade red wine pushes the solid parts upward and forming the cap of the mark, which must be the predically mixed with the must with a flour. As for homemade red wine, the optional fermentation temperature 24 to 30 degrees Celsius will for homemade white wines it is 80 to 21 degrees Celsius. Temperature control can be carried out by pumping air, which cool the must by using a heat source close to the container in the event that temperatures drop below the desired range. Step 6, pumping air. Let's see the sixth step to make wine at home. This operation is carried out several times a day depending on the temperature and the degree of the oxygenation of the wine, both to providing our homemade wine with the right amount of the oxygen essentially for the fermenting yeast and to lower the temperature of the must. It can be done through the use of the carefully sanitized buckets or with a bubble if the present on our fermenter. Step 7, sugar measurement in the must. To make wine at home, it will therefore be necessary to make sure that the fermentation is complete as the mentioned earlier. Yeast turn sugar into alcohol as long as they are there. The end of the presence of sugar will therefore indicate the end of the fermentation. The sugar can be calculated simply with the moist meter, which is addition to the quantity of sugar present, will provide us with the valuable information on the potentially alcohol of our homemade wine. Step 8, drawing. How to make house wine? The eighth step of to make wine at home consists in the racking at the end of the alcoholic fermentation. The must which has now become wine must be drawn